All right, let's take a look at where we're at so far. So I went ahead and just took those coffee dyed papers that I had made just real quick by spritzing it with some coffee dye, and then I actually just dropped some of the freeze-dried coffee right on there, and it makes nice little marks for me. I cut up this packing paper that I had showed you in the beginning, and I love the way that looks there. And I also added some dictionary pages. So if you don't have dictionary pages, you could use, you know, book pages. You could use a magazine if there was some, you know, something written, words or whatever there, even with a picture would look nice. So I've had this dictionary forever, and I am recycling some of the pages. And then I also had an old, just a notebook that I had torn some papers out of, and I also coffee dyed them as well to kind of make them look old. So that's one signature. And then this signature, I kind of basically have the same things in it. I don't think there's really anything different. Nope, just maybe a couple more here and there. And it doesn't look like, looks like I folded something wrong, unless maybe, oh, it just looked like I folded it cockeyed. Oh, maybe it is a little cockeyed. Look at that. Let me try that again. Fold that straight, maybe. There we go. Okay, so the pages are all there. So I think that's all the pages I'm going to put in. So together, I think that gives gives nice bulk here for me. But I do want to decorate the pages a little bit. So I went back to my greeting card stash because I'm finding some good images and things that I like there. And this one, I cut out this little image and just added like a little tuck spot. So if you had, you know, a piece of paper, you could kind of just tuck it in there if you wanted to. And I thought I would also, I cut out this little image that I really like. And I have some more fabric here. And I also took one of those return envelopes that I had pulled out in the beginning that I thought I would use. I also added some coffee dyeing to this, and I think I'm going to try to put this in here as well. So the first thing I'm going to do, because I thought I would make this like a little pocket, is I'm just going to shut it up. I'm going to glue it shut. And actually, that is not what I want to do right away, because let me, I'm getting ahead of myself, I'm gonna grab a little thing here. I want to first go in and cover up some of the background on this one. So let me just take that off for now. Sorry about that. Okay, so I want to see how there's like some lines in there, and normally they might be fine, you know, no big deal, but I thought I would just cover them up a little bit so that they weren't showing as much. So I was going to grab just a teeny bit of this fabric, and I'm going to cut a little more here just so I can have a kind of a smaller piece to work with. And I'm going to cut this seam off. Okay. And so I thought I would cover this part with the fabric, and then I might come in with this little border and put that in there, because I thought that was really cute too. But because there's this fold, when I fold it in half, the greeting card I don't think will work so well with that. So I'm going to, first I'm gonna cut this out, the border there that I want to use, and I'm going to cut it just with a little bit of a margin on either side so that it will definitely cover that window that's in there. Let's see if I can, I want to be sure that it, and I could even use that flower too if I could, you know, cut in around there. So there's so much to do here. All right, let me cut this off just to give me an idea of how much I'll need. And let's take a look. First, let's just make sure that it works in there. So if I can get it in there, I'll have those nice roses coming through. I like that a lot. So I'm going to kind of measure this from the fold down, so I have an idea of how much I need. And actually, I only really need to go, you know, just to the end of the window there. So I may cut that there just to try to preserve some more of those flowers that I could maybe use in a different part of the journal. So this now should fit in here. And I'm going to put my fabric down first so that I can put the fabric over the fold, because I know the fabric will fold easier than the cardstock will of the thing. So I'm just going to add some glue here. I'm going to try not to glue myself together, but I'm just adding a little glue right where I want my fabric to go. And then I'm just going to cover it up. And since it's kind of near the end, if it glues a little bit shut, I won't be too mad, because I have to make sure, because this will be the end of the pocket. So it's okay if it's a little bit glued shut. I mean, obviously I don't want it to be totally glued shut. Okay, so I have that on there. I think that works well. And then I'm going to put the glue on this piece now and see if we can slide it in here. But before I do that, I have my fabric, you can see, is kind of folding up there. I want to make sure that's glued down before I try to put my cardstock in there, because I know that that will give me a hassle if I try to do that. So I'm going to put my glue on. I'm going to make sure that it is lined up right by the window there, and then we'll get that put in. So, and then I'm going to let that dry, because I don't want it to, like I said, I don't really want it to glue shut if I can help it. While my envelope dries, I thought I would do something with this, and I think it's sort of the perfect size for a little tab. And actually, maybe I'll leave that little silver piece on there. Let's see if I can fold this without making a crease in it. So I just thought it would be fun to have a little tab maybe popping out the top of our journal. So I've got that like that. And I like that. So now I just need to pick a piece of paper for it to go on. So I was thinking just something like this, and that adds a little decoration to this page. And I think I am going to put it down just a little. I don't want it to be sticking up too far, I don't think. I'm going to just, so it's maybe just a ½ inch up there, a little tab. I like that. And so you could either sew this on or glue this on. I think I'm going to glue it on. Yeah, I like the way that looks. All right, so we'll let that dry too. But that'll be cute, sticking out the top. I like it, I like it. And we could add maybe another one if we wanted to as well. So once again, I'm just going through, this is a piece of paper that was left over from one of the images I cut out. So it was, you know, cards that have, I don't know if there's any more here that I have together. No, there's not. Some cards have a separate paper in there where the sentiment is written on and stuff. So this was part of that. But I thought maybe we could do a little addition to this, just with a couple of little stampies here. And then we could add that in as just like a little tuck spot or something as well. Or maybe even we could just put it on with, I know I have a little box of goodies. It's not gonna work. Maybe just put it right on here, just to add a little interest and texture right to this little dictionary page. I like that. And actually, you know what, since I already have the tab on this signature, I think maybe I'll add it to this one with my other dictionary page here. I'll just put that in there, because you could write on that as well. You could just take that out and write on it if you wanted to as well. Okay, I think this is dry. So what I'm gonna do again, let's try this one more time, is I'm gonna glue it shut. Now that I have everything in there that I wanted in there, I'm gonna go ahead and glue this shut. And then I'm just very carefully going to cut off maybe 1/8 of an inch off of each of the sides, so that now when we put it in the journal, we have these 2 little pockets on the sides, which I love. And of course, as soon as you cut something, you often open up white edges. So just make sure that there's no white edges on these pieces of paper. Mostly none, I should say. Okay, now this side of the paper, I'm just gonna leave the way it is, because you could add some writing to there. You could, you know, put on a label, you could do whatever you want, but I think that looks fine like it is. But I do want to cover up this stuff over here. So I have some fabric left over that matches everything. So I think I'm gonna use that just like that. I think that'll work perfectly there. And then I'm just going to add that other little piece that I cut out from a greeting card. I have this little piece that I cut out from the greeting card that I think will go nicely just right here on that page. So we'll glue him down too, and then we can put this in as part of our signature. Okay, so this is another paper there. So I'm gonna look and see, this one kind of feels like it has more in it, even though I think they're the same. But I think I'm gonna put this here in my book, like that. I think that'll be fun. And now I think my signatures are ready to go. Now I could continue to add different embellishments if I wanted to, pockets and different things like that. But this one right now looks like there's a lot of writing room, which I like. So I'm gonna kind of let that go for now, and we'll go ahead and get this going into our journal. All right, before we head in, I just was looking through the greeting cards I'd picked out and thought I wanted to do a couple more things. And so I thought I would bring you along with me as I did it. So I thought I really like this one and the pretty colors that are on this one. So I'm gonna grab my cutter real quick, and I'm gonna cut off this one edge just by itself. And then I want to cut off part of this, but I was thinking it would make a fun, like, little tuck spot or something. And this, I think, would be just nice as an edging somewhere in our book. So let me grab my ruler again. And, all right, so I think what I want to do, I'm not sure how I'm going to do this, but let's see. So I was thinking I would tear away just a part of this under the words, and then try to tear it up the side here. And maybe I should just do it with my fingers to get some of these words off. Now, let's see what we can do with it. So I thought this would be fun. Maybe even like I could take this one, you know, and just add it to one of the sides here. And this one might be fun, like I said, as a little tuck spot or even a pocket or something. So let's see, we'll do this one here. And I think this will add a nice little pop right to the journal, right to that page. It's kind of brown. Add some distress. And then it will definitely tie the two together. So I can put that one here like that. So I'll glue that down in a minute. And then for the other one, let's do the other signature here. See if we can find a nice place for that one to go. And maybe even just across from this page might be fun. So I think I'm gonna have to cut off a little bit of this. I'm not sure. Oh, that was the fold from the original card. So I think what I'm gonna need to do is I'm gonna cut off a little bit of that. After I cut off that little piece on the edge, I measured it on my page from the bottom up and then just marked it so that I could cut off the excess at the top. I'm just going to distress around the whole thing, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it over to my sewing machine, and I'm actually going to sew it onto this page, and I'm going to sew it on all the straight edges. So I'm going to leave the torn edge open there, but then I'm going to sew around the straight edge all the way around here to kind of give these sides a pocket. Now it will be kind of closed in right here, but that's okay. I'm going to use it for, you know, you could use it for a tag or something like that. So let me go ahead and do that, and I'll be right back to show you where we're at. Okay, back to the cover. So in the interest of time, I went ahead and put a snap on as my closure for my journal. And if you would like to see how I do that, I will put a link in the corner and down in the description on how to set a snap for a journal cover if you would like to do that. So I want to get working on the inside here so I can sew my signatures in. So what I need to do is I need to first just cover the spines with something to hide my bag here. So I can once again go back to some of this fabric that I have, which I may end up doing. Here, let's see if I can pull this out. So this little outfit here, like I said, I love the fabric, so I think I may just start, you know, tearing off some more pieces so I can just line right here and right here so it won't show. And then I'll need to work on the 3 panels of the journal so that all of this will be covered up. So first I'm just going to add some of the fabric, and then we'll come back and I'll tell you what I'm going to do for the sides there. Okay, I'm just finishing up putting the fabrics on, and I just thought I would kind of let you look into my process here a little bit. I went ahead and just cut pieces of fabric that fit the spine plus a little bit. So you can see this side's not as wide as this one, but it'll, once we get the other covers on, it'll be fine, the other papers on. So I'm using my 3-in-1 glue right now, and I already glued down the center strip. So I do that first just to kind of make sure I have it in place where I want it. And then I put some of this glue down, and then I just give it a little smoothing with my finger so that it doesn't kind of seep through too much. It may seep through a little, but remember, this will be, you know, the signatures will be sewn in here, and they'll all be put down. So that's kind of what I do to get my fabrics in there and ready to go. And now I'm probably going to go back to my greeting cards and book papers to cover everything. So I found this greeting card, and I really like the roses on this. I think it goes nicely with the cover. But obviously I don't want the thinking of you on there. So I think we're going to make a little corner pocket right here to fix that problem. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, cut this apart, and hopefully it'll be big enough for the page there. And we're going to hang on to this back part because I may be using that. And actually it looks like it might be a little big for this, which is good. I'd rather, you know, cut things down. So I'm just kind of checking out where my spine folds were. I think they're right there. Okay, so I want it to go a little bit smaller than that. No, wait, let me figure out where that is again. Okay, I think it's like right by this little braided area. So I'm going to do a little less than that. So when I mark it, I'm going to put it like right on this side of the braid, and that'll cut a little bit of that off, which is good. And then my height is pretty good, but still a little too long. So we'll cut that down a little as well. I'm going to use this back piece to make a little pocket, and we're going to cover it with some book page. So because my book pages aren't real stiff, I'm going to need this to, you know, give me some substance here. So I'm just going to mark this as well with my pencil, and I'm going to make sure I mark it up high enough to go past the words that are there. And then on the bottom, I think I'm just going to try to mark it. So there's some embossing on here. So I think I'm going to try to get it to not quite cover that. But I have my 2 marks on there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut, if I can find them, from mark to mark on here, so that I have a nice triangle pocket that I can use on here. So let's just make sure that does what I think it's going to do, which it does. It covers my wording just nicely, and I could even not even cover it. And actually, because I was thinking I would just tie in some book pages all around. I don't know. I may put them in. I don't know what I'm going to do here. So let's see. If I glue this down, doesn't really matter which way here, but I want the words to go up and down. So I know this is going to go here. So I'm going to flip this over because this is the side that I want to cover. I'm going to put it on backwards like this. And I'm going to let that dry for a minute, and let's talk about some of the other ones. So I have 2 more spaces to cover. So I need to cover this piece. So I used, you know, part of this card, and actually this one's going to be really slim. So I don't even know if that will work. It's not really tall enough either. So I may need to go digging for some more card there, or maybe I could just use some of my, let me grab that, like this flyer here, and cover this with book page. I think that's what I might do. I think that might work. And then for this one, I was thinking about using this card since it sort of matches with this one, even though it doesn't have any coloring on it. But we'll once again have to double check and see if we can somehow cover up the words here, which I think we can. We could probably use some fabric again. So I'm going to cut the edge off of this one, and we'll see if we can cut this down while the other one's drying. I could leave that little deckled edge on there if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. And I'm just cutting this at the crease right now. I'm, you know, probably going to have to cut it down. And actually this I could probably use to cover that since I'm already taking things apart. Okay, so I'm going to grab my pencil again, and we're going to make some marks here. So I want to keep as much of this as I can. We'll start cutting off of this edge since that's where the words are. And I'm just going to try to make sure I have this right where I want it on this side. And then the fold over here. Ooh, I'm going to have to take a lot off, I think, of this one. So this one I think is going to be about here, I think. And then height-wise, I'm going to keep as much on the bottom as I can, and we'll take off some of the top. Even though that's going to take off some of that pretty embossing up there, I would rather take some of that off so that it'll be easier to cover up the words that are there. And then for this one, I think I'm just going to add some fabric up here to the top. We're not going to do anything fancy on this page. I like the embossing. We'll leave it there and we'll let it go. So now to make it tie in, I may put a little bit of book page behind the fabric. So I just make a little collage there. We'll see how that goes. And then, so that's my middle piece. And then I think I'm going to use this again. And if we mark this to where we need to have it, and I think I'm going to try to match the size on this, at least the height, height-wise. And then our width for this, let's see, I'll do it from this end. Let's see where we need to go. Okay. So we need to go about right there to miss our fold. I just have a little tiny strip here, so let's see if this is going to work for us. But I think that'll do it, as long as I didn't hit the creases. But yeah, I like the way this is gonna work, I think. So here's what our backs are gonna look like. I'm gonna grab another book page out of here, and we're gonna cover this just like we had covered the flap piece here. We're gonna do the same thing here. We're gonna cover that up with book page and distress it a bit, maybe even sew around the edges. And same thing with these. So I'm just going to add a little book page here, maybe a little torn book page here, a little bit of fabric, maybe even a button. That might be fun right there. And then we will cut this out, sew around the edges, and attach that to this. So I'll be right back when all of those are done. Okay, I wanted to kind of show you what I did before I glue everything down. I cut out our little triangle. I did decide to add a little thumb notch there, just to, kind of give it the, so you could tell that it's for, putting paper or something in. But I also distressed all the edges, and I love the way that one turned out. So I think this is going to be a perfect front cover for the journal. And then for this piece, I did distress it just like I did the other one, but I thought it might be fun to just distress some of the embossing on there so it stands out a little bit. And I do like how that turned out, because it does kind of fall in line with, the whole vintage thing that we have going on here. Now, for this piece, I did take a piece of the fabric, and I took a piece of book page there, and then I just sewed some buttons on. And now these buttons are not recycled, but they are actually paper buttons, and I love them because they're nice and thin. They're still shiny. And if you would like to learn how to make these paper buttons, I have a little project showing you how to do that, and I will link that up in the corner and also down below if you would like to check that out. And then I'm just going to take this and I'm going to put it right here on this paper here to cover up our words. So I am going to glue the whole thing down so that, it doesn't peel off or anything like that. And I'm going to make sure I get those little threads that I have glued down as well. And I'm going to keep it mostly on this paper. I was thinking about kind of hanging it off, but because it's going to be glued down to the journal cover, I think I just want to be sure that everything is glued down. Now the paper is glued down. You can see that the fabric still comes up a little bit, and I kind of like that because it looks like it's, just the buttons are holding it down, which is partially true. Okay, and then my last piece was this little piece of the card that we cut out to do our little side flap here, and I think that that worked out perfectly as well. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use my glue, and I'm going to glue everything down, making sure that as I go, I don't, hit the folds. So I'm going to be kind of just watching as I go through that, making sure I don't glue over any of the folds that'll make it hard to fold. Okay, my inside pages are all dry, and I will say that it did take me a little bit of time to kind of just hold these down until they were adhered. So because of the thickness of the bag and the fabric and all that good stuff, I really just kind of needed to make sure all of these ends were really secure. So I ended up putting a book on top of it to make sure everything was held down until it was secure. But now you can see it's very secure, and I think we're good to go. So I went ahead, because now we're going to sew in our signatures. And before I do that, I just wanted to mention there's so much more decorating I could do, even with just what's left over from these cards. You could cut shapes out, you could make tags with these, you could cut them apart and put in pockets if you wanted to. There's really so much that you can do, even just with these cards. So you can also incorporate some of those napkins that I had pulled out before, more fabric, all that kind of stuff. So there's really so much more you can do, but I will leave that up to your imagination, and we'll get these sewn in so we can finish off this cover. So that being said, I went ahead and started to make a template. So I just took a piece of, actually some of the card left over that was as tall as my journal and fits right in this spine here. So I wanted to be sure that my signatures weren't right at the edge. So I came in just a little bit. I think this is maybe 3/8 of an inch or something like that. So I basically put a middle line, and then I came out from that 3/8 of an inch on each side. So I think this is just about a 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit less, because maybe it was more like 3/16. Anyway, this is a little over 1/4 of an inch. This is probably 3/8 in between. So with the width of these signatures, I think this will be great. And so I have my lines all ready to go, and the horizontal lines are the lines where I'm going to put my actual holes. So I'm going to grab my little paper piercer pokey tool here, and just where every line crosses, I'm going to make a hole there so I know kind of where I'm going to be sewing. And once you do that, then you can make your holes in your signatures as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to grab a couple of these big paper clips that I have here to hold things in place, but once again, you could use bulldog clips or regular paper clips, or those sewing clips, whatever you got. Okay, so now the other thing that I'm going to do before I poke holes is I'm going to make sure all my papers are going the way I want them to go. They're lined up, where I want them. So like this envelope is kind of a 1/2 page, so I want to be sure I put it where I want it. Now, if I centered this, I probably would only catch one hole. So I think I want to try to catch 2 holes. So I'm going to move this down to the bottom, sort of the bottom third there, to be sure I catch all, at least 2 holes when I'm sewing this one in. So I think everything else is good. I'm going to go to the middle. Let's see if I can find the middle. And then I'm going to hold everything together. And then I'm going to mark and poke my holes in my signature, and I'm going to leave these together. So I'm going to use my template here, make sure I've got my top, and I'm going to put this right in the center, and then I'm just going to mark the holes where my lines are. And that's kind of the other nice thing about making horizontal lines on your template, because you can very easily see where your holes need to go. And I'm going to grab 2 more paper clips, and we're going to do the same thing with this signature. Okay, once again, I'm going to take my tool here and I'm just going to punch these holes so that they are ready for me to sew. Okay, and then the last thing I need to do is poke my holes in my cover here. So I'm going to grab my, I don't know what that came off of, or maybe that was just an extra. I'm just going to grab my little phone book here, and I'm going to place my template right in there. And actually, I am going to grab a couple of sewing clips to hold this together so I can pick it up, because I have a feeling this is going to be pretty hard to punch through since that bag is kind of thick. So we'll see how this goes. So I already have a hole there. And let's make sure it went through. That's good. And I can see the hole pretty well so that when I'm sewing, I'll know right where to put my needle through. All right. And I can see my holes under there as well. So now we're ready to sew. And since sewing, takes a little bit of time, I'm just going to link you to how I do my pamphlet stitch. So there, I'll put a link in the description down below, and I'll put it in a card up here in the corner, so that if you're interested in seeing how I do my my stitch to get these in, you can go take a look at that. Now, I don't really have any recycled materials that I can use for my my sewing, my thread. So I am just going to grab, it's something that I've had. It's not something that is brand new, but you could use embroidery floss here. If you had some, very thin twine or something like that, there's plenty of things you could do. If you didn't want to sew, if you didn't want to punch the holes, you could just take a long piece of ribbon and put it around the outside for each one of the signatures and then tie it, at the bottom or in the middle to kind of hold it in. So there are some options if you don't, have those, but I'm going to use what I have on hand, which is, some nylon cord or linen thread. I'm not sure exactly what I have. So I'm going to go ahead and sew those in, and then I'll show you where we are at. Signatures are all sewn in, and you can see I have my strings on the outside. My knot is on the inside, and for now I left these long here because I remembered I have this old bracelet that the clasp is messed up on, and I thought I would use some of the beads on these long strings. So I think I'm going to try to do that. So I wanted to add just a couple of little embellishments at the end just to finish us up. I also die cut out of one of the cards a little book plate here. You could just cut that out if you don't have the die cut, and I was thinking that might be nice on the front cover here. And of course I thought maybe, well, we could add a little bit of fabric to that part as well, just to give it a little bit more interest. So I'm gonna grab my glue one more time, and first I'm just gonna glue this down to the fabric, and then we'll put the fabric on. And I'm gonna kind of do the same thing I had done before, meaning I'm gonna just glue where the paper is and kind of leave some of those edges of the fabric up, because I think that will look nice. So you can I probably almost don't even need to put glue on this, because it's seeping through the this is pretty thin fabric that I'm using here. But I am just going to add just a little bit to there, and then we will figure out where we think this needs to go. And I'm thinking maybe I should put it off to the side a little bit. That might be fun. So it's kind of coming over here, just as long as it stays on the front, which it does. Make sure I have it fairly straight. And there we go. I think that looks great for the front cover. And then I'm just gonna see if I can cut this apart here and get some of the beads off. Try not to hurt myself when I do this. This feels like a wire, so I'm gonna grab, I have a little wire cutter here so that I don't wreck my scissors. There we go. And I was thinking these kind of little brown ones would be cool. And all I'm going to do is I want them to hang from the bottom, so I'm going to try to thread them through here. And then I'm just going to tie them off on the bottom. So there's a couple little separator beads in here that I think might be nice too. So I'm kind of just threading it back the same way it was when it was an actual bracelet. So I think that looks good. I am going to kind of move it down just a little bit so it's not real tight up against here. But then I'm just going to see if I can tie a little knot, which who knows if I'll be able to do that on camera here. And I'm going to make sure that knot is kind of where I want it before I pull it tight. So I may need to put one more knot in there, and to do that I'm going to grab my tweezers because that makes it easier for me. So if you want to get a knot right on top of another knot, when you put it through, you kind of put your tweezers through the knot. Let's see, I think that it would go, I think I did this backwards, but, and you hold your tweezers, whoopsie, I didn't put it through the right side. You hold your tweezers on the knot, and when you've put it through the right side of the knot, when you pull that knot tight, it'll want to tighten right around wherever your tweezers are. And then when you pull it out, you can make sure that knot is right on top of the other one. So those are going to hang down just a little bit. So I'm going to do a couple more of those. I really like the way that looks. I may just do one on some of these others. And actually for that signature, so this one, I have two pretty long threads, but then my other signature, I kind of have one short thread and one long thread. So for this signature, I think I'm just going to cut these down so that they don't show out the bottom. But then I am going to add a couple of beads to this one, so I have two little danglies there. I think that'll be fun. Okay, my last little decorations are on. You can see I have my two little dangles here, and I'm just going to cut off past the knot, maybe a ½ inch, just to be sure it doesn't unravel on me. You could also probably add a little dab of glue to those knots if you want to just make sure they stay in place. But you can see now with my journal that they hang down. I love that little dangle there. And I have my snap ready to go, and I think our journal is complete. So there you have it, a journal from recycled materials that you probably have around the house right now. Thank you so much for joining me for this little series. I hope that you try one of these, and if you do, I would love to see it. You can tag me on Instagram at madpapercrush, or just leave me a note down below and let me know if you've tried it. Thanks so much, friends. Have a great week, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.